The other thing was that, I've been trying for years to kind of achieve this result, and I read Getting Things Done. I tried different productivity apps and so on,
Yep.
and it was very, very cumbersome. It was just like a lot of overhead, and overhead not in financial costs, but just the time it takes to run these different systems.
Yep.
Whereas the system that we have now is actually very light and lean, and it's not too much. It's not bureaucratic. There's not tons of meetings. I'm not taking
Yep.
tons of notes and reporting lots of things. It's
Right.
just very, very light and lean. And I can tell you that actually, I was a little bit worried for how our team was going to respond to this. Change management is a real thing. And our employee who's been with us the longest, we were most worried about her because she was actually kind of like almost like the problem employee a little bit in a way.
Sure.
And we asked her, hey, what do you think about this? And she said, I've been with you guys for a couple of years. I've been waiting for something like this.
When I look around at all the entrepreneurs who are grinding it out, spending 70 to 80 hours per week, growing their business, you have to ask yourself the question, at what cost? Hi, my name's Tim Uchuk, and in this podcast, we're going to be exploring the tools, tactics, and strategies for crushing it and scaling your business without making the ultimate sacrifice of your time and freedom.
All right, what's up, everybody? Hunter Otis here with Tim Uchuk, Simplify to Multiply and the Perfect Week coaching program. I have Slava here on the call with me today. How you doing, man?
Doing great. Awesome to be here. Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah, you're welcome, and thanks for hopping on. I've been actually looking forward to chatting with Slava for a while. He jumped in just before I actually started getting on board with Tim myself, and so being able to see Slava's journey, this is, as we've talked here, it's like the same time. Like he jumped into the program and I jumped in and started doing some of the calls and getting more engaged right about the same time. So I've been following Slava and his progress, and he's just been getting work done and getting good results. So I wanted to hop on a call and capture a little bit of that slice of heaven of the good stuff. So
Thanks, I appreciate it.
Yeah, I look forward to it. So why don't you jump in? Just introduce yourself. What do you do? What's your business? It's you and your wife that are both kind of on board, right? So tell us a little bit about just the situation, your company, what do you do, where you're from, and we'll go from there.
That sounds good. So yeah, my name is Slava Menn. I am a serial entrepreneur, I guess I could say that. So I came from an engineering and technology background, but I started doing real estate development about 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago. So my main business is called Labrador Real Estate, and we buy rundown houses in Boston, and we redevelop them, and we build new 5-unit, 10-unit buildings in the city, downtown in the city of Boston. It's a very difficult place to do work for a lot of reasons: tight spaces, a lot of tough political climate. But that's what we do. We do new construction and redevelopment. And then our other business is the Present Hotel Group. So we have a few hospitality properties, in Savannah, Georgia, with these little boutique hotels and so on. And my business partners are, one is my wife, although she's kind of phasing herself out because she's starting a nonprofit, and we have another business partner as well.
Got it, right on. Yeah, very cool. So why don't you jump right in? Tell us a little bit about, well, how are things before, I guess, jumping on board with Tim? Like, what was your life like? What were the stressors? What were the fires going on? And what were you really looking to get help with?
Yeah. So it was a little bit serendipitous, but I'll back up. I haven't had a real job in a very long time. So I've really started my own companies. I haven't updated my resume in probably 15 years or so. And I never actually grew a company beyond 5 or 10 people. And I think a big part of that was I was actually also didn't find myself to be a good day-to-day manager. I'm good at like getting up and kind of giving like a speech and getting people fired up. I'm comfortable doing that.
Right.
But when it comes down to like hey, did you get the TPS report over to Jim over there in the other department? Like, how come you didn't do it? Why'd you screw that up? And so on. Like, I just never was really good. I just never was really good at that. And I kind of started to feel like I wasn't actually a really good leader.
Mm.
And as a result, if you take a look at the headcount at my companies, it kind of looks like this: up, got for more people, people left or we let them go, up a little bit, we let people go. You know, it was like 1 to 2 years, and then I just wasn't really happy with them because they just weren't doing what I wanted them to do.
Right.
So, and then translate that to, I just found myself just in the weeds a lot, doing a lot of tasks I didn't want to be doing stuff that was, you know, just, just remedial stuff that, and just didn't have the hours in the day. And then, I saw this thing where it said, dads who run their own business and want to have more time. And I was like, that's me. I run my own business. I'm a dad, and that's how I really identify myself. And I want to have, more time. So it just really spoke to me in that regard.
Yeah. Awesome. Yeah. Then, what's happened? So it's been what, maybe 6, 7, 8 months, somewhere around there. So what's been like the primary outcome for you so far? You mentioned wanting to be a better manager and all those things. So what are the results? Let's let the results speak for themselves, right?
Sure. So I guess when I started, I think I was working maybe 50 or 70 hours a week, depending on the week, let's say 60 hours a week on average.
Okay.
The other piece of it was that, my wife came on to help me out with a few things, but she was doing stuff that was way below her ability grade. So she's brilliant. She's much smarter than I am. She left a very lucrative, very hard to get job in management consulting, which was after getting her MBA from MIT. So she left this very great career trajectory where she was going to be a partner at the firm, because it was just too long hours. And she came on, she's helping me with bookkeeping and accounting and just stuff that just really, nothing wrong doing bookkeeping and accounting, but it's just not really her ability, not really where she is. And the other thing that we found was that, if we spend every hour of the day working together on little remedial tasks and business stuff, there is no real like getting home from work. You spend all day with this person, and then you get home from work, and then you spend all day with this person, and then the lines were just too blurred, and it wasn't really great. It wasn't great for our relationship. So we decided, a year or two ago, that we gotta phase her out a bit and bring people on to do what she's doing. But frankly, we just did not know how. We didn't know how to. We tried to bring on one assistant, and she helped with some things. We brought another assistant, but it just wasn't there. So what happened with the course was that I think it's a 6-week course or so, and I just devoured it. So I have just pages and pages of notes in my Evernote from it, and we just jumped in, like, we didn't hesitate. We jumped full in on it.
Yeah.
So it taught us a lot of things, which I'm happy to share.
Yeah. Go right ahead. What maybe top 2 or 3 things that you feel like, have just been really impactful for you?
Yeah, I think just the cadence of what the week to week looks like has been really, really good for us. I mean, let me actually back up a little bit. What I really like about it is that it starts off with the high level philosophies, why you want to do these things. So why do you want to, make it so that there's systems that run the business, and that when something doesn't work, you're not blaming an individual on it, you're blaming a system on it. Right. So, and it taught us how to basically be able to, when people don't really want to drop the ball, they don't want to mess up. Right. So when somebody messes something up, it's not actually necessarily them that's messing it up. It's that the system wasn't working right. So there we go in, we take a look at what is the system that wasn't working right and how they follow it. So I love that about it. The other thing was that, I've been trying for years to kind of achieve this result, and I read Getting Things Done. I tried different productivity apps and so on. And it was very, very cumbersome. There's just like a lot of overhead, and overhead not in financial costs, but just the time it takes to run these different systems. Whereas the system that we have now is actually very light and lean, and it's not too much. It's not bureaucratic. There's not tons of meetings. I'm not taking tons of notes and reporting lots of things. It's very, very light and lean. And I can tell you that actually I was a little bit worried for how our team was going to respond to this. Change management is a real thing. And our employee who's been with us the longest, we were most worried about her because she was actually kind of like almost like the problem employee a little bit in a way.
Sure.
And we asked her, hey, what do you think about this? And she said, I've been with you guys for a couple of years. I've been waiting for something like this. And
Nice.
I love this because it gives me total
Nice.
clarity in what I need to do. So people like having clarity. It's what I've learned. I think, entrepreneurs might think that they like just being able to like find their own path and make things up and be creative and so on.
Right.
And I think that's true for a certain subset of the population, which is like the crazy ones who want to start their own businesses, right?
Right.
But the bulk of my team, they actually like knowing here's what I am going to be doing this week, and they certainly have tons of creative ability within that. But it just brings much more clarity of what they need to do on a day-to-day basis.
Yes. Yeah. So creating that structure for your people. Yeah. That we find the same thing. It's like 9 times out of 10, when you bring the right structure in for somebody and give them the tools that they need to just execute on their job, they tend to thrive. They do so much better. And it's, I think a lot of times we think we hate structure, right? I don't want to be told what to do. I want to be my own blah, blah, blah. But just most humans, not everybody, right? But probably the 80-20 rule, probably 80% of people do way, way, way better when there's clear structure in place, right?
So me included. So before I was actually even able to manage my team with a system, I first had to manage myself with a system.
Yeah.
And I'm a guy who, I was brought up, I lived with my dad, and he just wasn't a super, organized guy. And those were the habits I learned, age 10 through 20. And I basically have spent the next 20 years trying to undo those habits, and I've worked really hard to get there. But this system supercharged that. So using the systems that are taught here to just organize myself, and just to when I sit down at the beginning of the week, knowing what I actually need to do myself, that's been super helpful for me. What are the top 3 things that I must get done today? Not the 20 things that I'm never going to get to, but the 3 things that matter the most. It's like brute prioritization to do that. And there's also just a satisfaction. I can look back on my week and say, wow, I actually got a lot done this week. I actually I give myself a pat on the back at the end of the week. I just feel fulfilled in doing it.
Right. Yeah. Because, if you have a list of 50 things, let's say you get 10 things done, like that's really good. But because there's still 40 left over, you're like, frick.
Yeah.
I didn't do anything. Like crap, but yeah, being able to break it down and like, okay, this week, this needs to get done, and just keep it very laser focused. Well, one, you end up feeling less overwhelmed, right? Because you don't have to get every single last thing done, but then oftentimes you just get more traction on those few things, and then you're able to do more than you would otherwise.
Yeah, it forces you to prioritize and do the things that matter the most, and decide what things that don't matter.
Right.
And so the thing that's kind of bonkers in doing all this is that I'm now in a place where I can literally run my business working less than 20 hours a week. I can average, a busy week might be 30. But since doing that, we actually moved from Boston, which is a beautiful place, but not a great place to be during the winter. We moved to San Diego.
Oh, wow.
And that was a lot of fun. And then after that, we looked at this current global pandemic, and we said, hey, why don't we just do something a little bit different? So we actually bought an RV, and we're moving into the RV full time.
Nice.
So, and then during that time, I'm picking up a new hobby of called foil surfing. So it's a type of, I've been doing this other kind of surfing before. So I'm going all in on, so I'm spending 20 hours a week, 20, 30 hours a week working, and the rest of the time I'm going to be really focused on my family, travel, and picking up this foil surfing. So
yes. Wow. So that's huge. So you said like average of 60 hours before, sometimes more, sometimes maybe a little bit less, but average of 60. Just the structure not fully being there. So people just problems, right? And turnover and all these fires that you have to deal with, to now 20 hours a week or less, having a fulfillment time with your family. You have little ones, kiddos?
We have a 1-year-old and a 3-year-old. Yeah.
Awesome. Yeah. So cool.
Yeah.
Ours are 6, 5, and 3. I have 6, 5, and 4. Sorry, 3 daughters. Just one right after the other. But that's they're our reason for. They're the reason for all the hard work and the labor, and the reality is when our kids are young, it's like 90% of the time we spend with our children is before the age of 18,
Right. That's
you
right.
know? And when they're little, like what yours are, like it's sacred time. Like my youngest, the first year of her life, I was present physically, but mentally I was so stressed out and with work and business and all this stuff that it's like that year's just a blur. And I regret that, you know?
I agree.
And
Yeah.
it's you don't get it back. So it's so powerful. So powerful you have that time just for the family fulfillment.
Yeah. And my daughter, who's 3, is going to bring tears to my eyes, but I started taking every lunch with her. So we do an hour and a half lunch. I do it every day,
Mm,
and we'll usually go for a bike ride. But yesterday we decided just to read a book in the backyard.
yeah.
And she said this to me after when I was going back to work for that day, and the babysitter was going to take back over. She said, "Papa, I love spending time with you." And
Yeah.
I'm not making this up. I don't know where she got the expression "spending time." I don't know how a 3-year-old knows how to say that, but she was
Yeah.
so genuine said it, and it just I'll never forget that. And I have I truly have this course to thank for it because it helped me. It coached me through how to automate my business and cut down my time. And the ironic thing is, I think I'm not an overly religious person, but I think things kind of happen for a reason, and things happen when they're supposed to happen, and so on. And I have this notebook here, and this is my journal, and every day I write down my goals.
Yeah.
And if you look through here, and I've written the same goals, I've written this just about every day for this is October of 2019, so for I guess 9 months or so. So it's about a month before I met Tim, and my number 3 goal, my number 1 goal is shining love on my wife. My number 2 is being a patient and playful father to my kids. Number 3 is to automate my business. I
Mm.
literally wrote that goal. A month later, I found out about this course, and then 9 months later, I've done it.
Wow. It's kind of like the law of attraction at its finest, right? Like
Yeah.
you open yourself to what you want, find a way to get it, see the vehicle, grab hold of the vehicle, execute on the vehicle, and
Yeah.
now here you are. And just to validate you in that, I mean, that's so many people want that. And it's yeah, it's helpful when you have somebody on, that has your back to kind of help you along the way, right? To give you the step by step, but you also did that work. And it's just so powerful to see, like, short-term sacrifice, long-term gain, right? And but I think that a lot of times we get into that as business owners, like we're always in this like short-term sacrifice mode. Like, this isn't normal. This situation, there's a fire. I've got to work my butt off for just the next 3 months. I'm just going to work. We'll get through this, and then we'll come out the other side, and it'll be different. And then guess what happens? It
Yeah.
stays the same. Then more fires, more problems, and it never changes. And so, like, it's kind of like you drew the line in the sand, like you wrote that down, and then we saw the opportunity, you went for it. It's like, no, instead of spending all your time and energy just putting out the fires and making that short-term sacrifice, thinking you're going to get long-term freedom when you're really not. Like, let's take that time. It's going to be uncomfortable, but let's jump in and let's automate your business, because that's what's actually going to deliver
Yep.
on those other things that you actually want. And so, seriously, good work. Like,
Thank you, my friend. Thank you. One other thing I want to share was, I'm not really somebody, I think it might be just my immigrant mentality, but I worked so hard for my money, and I'm not rich. I didn't grow up rich, and for me to, the most expensive car I've ever owned is $10,000.
yeah,
And I could buy new cars if I wanted to at this point, but for me to spend money on a course like this was actually a huge hesitation for me. It's
mm,
just, it's not an outrageous price. It's a reasonable price, but it was, for me, it was quite expensive. But I did it, and I did it without a lot of hesitation, because my thought is that, if this course does, 1/10 of what I think it's going to do, then that money is going to come back to me instantly. Like, the time that gets freed up, I can apply towards growing my business. And,
right,
when you own your business, you can find other ways to create money when you have more time. Time
yeah,
is usually the bottleneck. Opportunities are rarely a bottleneck. It's time.
right,
So to spend that money to free up my time, And now as a result, we're just looking at larger real estate deals. I have, it just, that amount of money I spent on this, aside from the hours that it freed up for me, I'm just making that back in so many different ways with the opportunities that are available to me because I have the time to pursue them.
Right. Yeah. The answer is not in doing more.
Yeah.
Right. Like we have to do less. We have to reclaim time so we can reallocate it. And as a result, you're able to actually create that change because you have the time to be able to execute on those things. Otherwise, it just continues to slip through your fingers.
Yeah. And it sounds so clear, when you say it like that, it sounds very clear. But I mean, I think that's another thing I like about the course is that it's philosophies, it's strategies, and it's tactics, right? So but the philosophy is that mindset shift of not, like you said, not doing more, right? So one of the things that I learned in it, I don't necessarily mean to give the whole thing away, but we looked at what are my $1,000 per hour activities, what are my $100 per hour activities, what are my $10 per hour activities, right?
Yep.
And those different steps. And where was I spending my time? And I found that I was spending a lot of my time on those $10 per hour activities. And by learning how to automate that, and now instead I have this brilliant woman in the Philippines who was one of 2 virtual assistants that we have that does a lot of that stuff. And we have another brilliant woman that's in in the US that does a lot of the other stuff that the woman in the Philippines is quite in her skill set. And by bringing on these 2 people that are each working maybe about 20 hours a week for us, I've cleared out so much of the other stuff that I hated doing that was taking up a ton of my time and was just not high value. And now the stuff that I'm doing is more just the $100 or the $1,000 per hour activities. And that's just been it was a huge philosophy shift for me, just to be able to understand, 1, that I need to do it, 2, that it's possible to do. That's the strategy, I think. And then 3 is the tactics of actually how to do it. So that's just been a huge shift for me as well.
Sure. And what was like your favorite part of this whole experience so far?
Give me a second. There's a lot that come to mind. So let me think about the one that's been the best. I think this is what it is. So there's the things that I've already mentioned, just about freeing up my time and the time with the kids, right? That's nothing can supersede that.
Right.
I think the thing that I really learned from this is that with every time I do something, if it's going to be any kind of task I'm going to repeat doing over and over again, then what I now do is I think differently, total mindset shift, where I now create a process to make it so that somebody else can do that for me. But what I love about that is what I used to think that meant was write out some kind of 10-page standard operating procedure that sits in a file, electronic or paper, that nobody ever looks at, right? And that was just such a this awful catch-22. Like I either need to become like some kind of operator that has like all these documentation, these files, and so on. And that was just so unappealing to me. It's not my personality to write up systems and procedures. I hate the word procedure. That's terrible.
Right.
What I learned in this course is how can I do a simple procedure for my iPhone that takes me 90 seconds to record it, and now it lives in this resource section that everybody on my team knows where it is. So it's easy for me to record, takes no time on my part, and takes no time for somebody else to pull it up. I love that. And I do that day in, day out. And it just, by continuously doing that, I'm chipping away at those $10 an hour activities to where I've just freed up my time.
Yeah. What would you say to somebody who maybe is getting started on that and just feels overwhelmed, right, by just all the things that they don't have procedures for and don't have delegated? Like, what would you say to someone at the outset?
So the shift doesn't happen in a day. It doesn't happen in a week. I'm 9 months into it, and I think we've really started feeling it. We actually started feeling it pretty quickly. 1 or 2 months into it, we start feeling the differences. But imagine I've been spending a lot of time on the water lately because I've had the time. So imagine you're on a big sailboat, right? And that sailboat does not turn quickly. turns a few degrees and a few degrees and a few degrees and a few degrees. And when that sailboat turns enough, it's called tacking. The sail actually switches over. Now you're going in a completely total direction. You're going
Right.
with the wind. You're going faster and so on. So it's kind of like I felt like there was like these small shifts. And then one day you wake up and it's been a few months and you've been diligently doing a little bit each day. And all of a sudden you're going in a totally different direction, faster, lighter, and easier than you had before because you've moved that whole heavy boat around and you're going in a different direction.
Right. Yeah. So each little thing you do just adjusts the ship by a matter of degrees till all of a sudden, boom,
That's right.
the wind hits the sail and the sail takes it and you go.
It hits the sail just right and you're flying. And that's how we feel like we're doing right now. And, you know, the vocabulary, like the vocabulary from Tim's course is now become our internal team vocabulary. Everybody has this one Japanese word in the vocabulary called kaizen, right? And so small shifts. So every time we're doing something, it's like, you know, constant and never-ending improvement, kaizen, these little shifts, right? So we just really do think about things systematically that way.
Yeah, we're always, a lot of times we're looking for the big magic bullet, right, to fix problems. But the reality is that it's the little things. The little things, you know, by small things, great things come to pass. And that's the truth with this, and that's why I think what you mentioned before with the Trello board, like having your backlog, like you can capture everything in your brain and download it in there. Then you have, these are my 3 top priorities. And you get those, you just chip those few things away that are the most important things every single week. And you get there. And people, it's surprising sometimes just how quickly it actually does happen once you're focused in on the right things.
For sure.
So yeah, it's cool to see. Yeah, I think, like you said, kind of saw results pretty quickly, like within the first 24 months. Right?
Sorry, hold on a second. Let me make this go away. Say that again, please. I'm glad you'll be able to edit this.
Yeah, no, maybe I'll just leave it in there so people see that we're human. Yeah, it's totally fine. Yeah, well, why don't I just carry on? So for you, what has it been like now? Because we've had this whole COVID craziness going on too, right? So what has that been? So you were able to jump in before and get some of these things in place before it really hit. How has it impacted you, and what was it like working with him through that so far? I mean, we're still in it, but
yeah, for sure. I'm trying to rewind back to March and April, where those were kind of the most stressful months for me with COVID. I'm trying to remember where I was, like where my headspace was at those times.
right.
You know what? This is actually interesting. So even before the coronavirus pandemic, we had always enjoyed traveling. We were often working remotely, and we actually carried this guilt that we weren't with our team one-on-one, in person. And then after taking this course, in January, before the pandemic hit, we realized that we just needed to define ourselves as a remote company. So we made that definition in January that we're now a remote company. And then we're no longer apologizing for it. We're no longer apologizing why we're in sunny San Diego while everybody else is shoveling snow in Boston, right? We're a remote company. You work from wherever it makes sense to work. So when COVID hit, it just made for just a totally seamless transition for us because we already had our meeting cadence. We were following the same agenda each week. We were doing everything online. We're doing everything, using Trello and using, Zoom videos and so on. So just the whole thing was just very, very smooth. So I think it made that shift towards a not in-person, hyper digital systems had happened ahead of COVID for us. So that piece of it just was very, very easy. There's no challenge there.
Yeah, fantastic. So having to switch to remote, it was smooth and easy because of the way your technology was set up. You're able to just cruise right into it and take care of the options.
That's right. We had plenty of other challenges. We needed tenants to pay rent, and tenants were losing jobs, and we had plenty of other challenges, many stresses.
Right.
But the thing that was just totally handled was the the team was handled because we were all, working, and we already knew how to work remotely because
Right.
of the course. Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody, maybe someone who's on the fence, doesn't know if this is the right thing for them, whether they're worried about COVID or not? Like what's your words of wisdom for them in trying to make that best decision for themselves?
Yeah. So I'm someone that, again, because of the way I was raised and kind of having this immigrant upbringing, it's very hard for me to spend money. It's very hard for me to part with money. Um, but when I'm going to make a large financial purchase, which for me, this was a very large financial purchase, um, I just think about ROI, right? So what I thought about was that, whatever the cost of the course is, how else can I make that money?
Hmm.
So if I can find a way that it frees up a little bit of my time, and therefore I can make this money, how can I make that money back? Then it's worth it to me, right? So what I found was that it would actually be very easy for me in my business, to make the money back with the extra free time I had. And then all the other benefits were gravy, right?
Hmm.
So like the spending more time with my kids, that was gravy. But I needed that I need to find a financial ROI to be able to justify it for myself.
Right.
So that was for the financial piece. The time piece for it was, didn't really ever seem to be enough time to like sit down and to take the course and so on, because it's 6 weeks, it's, a couple hours each week, and then you have to implement the stuff. But we weren't trying to do it all. We actually didn't do it in 6 weeks. We took our time with it, and I maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I think I'm only 4 weeks into the course. I didn't bother with week 5 and 6 yet, because the benefit I got from weeks 1 to 3 were enough. And then when I'm ready to, it's there. When I'm ready to, I'm going to do weeks 5 and 6 because I'll be ready for it. So I just didn't feel the need to rush it. But I did keep at it steadily, and that's how I made time for it.
Yeah. No, that's important to mention too, because I think people, anything you start, especially if you pay a lot of money for it, you feel like, well, if I do this, I need to go whole hog and just get this whole thing done, put everything into it, work my butt off. It's like, no, you don't need to do that. Like that's what we've been following all these years in running our business, and it hasn't served us very well. Right. So it's the working smarter, not harder thing.
Yeah.
And realizing that, the work that you do here, like you wrote down, automate my business. When you do those little Kaizen-like improvements, the small little things day in, day out, heading towards that goal, like it pays back dividends. You don't need to stress yourself out. You don't need to overload yourself, overwhelm yourself. It's like, just extract the value where it's most important right now. Don't worry about everything else.
Yeah. And I totally agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes, that's really powerful. So then we've already talked a little bit about your personal life and how it's impacted you, but is there anything else that you want to share, and just how this has just really changed things for you just in your own personal fulfillment?
One thing you just said about, working smarter, not harder, it just kind of brought up something for me also. It seemed like I'm a really hardworking person. I just was raised that way. I wrestled in high school. Like, I could have played tennis. Not that tennis isn't a tough sport, but nobody smashes your face in the ground when you play tennis. So like, in my head, I did engineering, which, not that other degrees aren't challenging, but like, I spent more time out of the library than most people did. So I'm just accustomed to this, like, I got to grind. And what I realize is that I don't actually have to grind. Like, business doesn't need to be a grind. Running my own business doesn't need to be a grind. And it can be easy. It's okay for it to be easy. So like, this course kind of has given me permission in a way to like look for ways to make my business easy. And it just shifted my mindset on a lot of things. Like, I used to, on construction, I would be super hands-on involved on the construction and every piece myself. And, this wasn't directly from the course, but what's great about, having I call them office hours. I don't know if that's what they're called, but the calls with Tim, twice a week, is I asked him this question, which wasn't specifically outlined in the course, but I mean, Tim is just a very lucid thinker when it comes to solving problems like this. So I actually find him to be like a very good just coach for specific problems. I enjoy listening to other people asking questions because it's like listening to like a very, very great, business advisor. But what I decided to do is, instead of being super hands-on with the construction myself, I brought in a partner. Now, a partner is not somebody I directly manage. I can't tell him to do Trello. And I actually I suggested he did it. He just didn't want to do it. But what we did agree on, and Tim helped me figure this out, was what are the KPIs? What are the key performance indicators that as long as he's doing this, this, and this, I don't care how he does it. I don't care if he does it with Trello or if he does it on the back of a napkin, or if he spends 1,000 hours doing it or 10 hours doing it. So we just came up with, what's their budget going to be? What's our schedule going to be? And then I just made a very simple system that he can very easily follow to do those things. And that actually was inspired by the course. And then I actually got to do, these calls where I got to ask Tim for his advice on it, and he helped me come up with it. And it actually wasn't even easy to persuade my partner to do it. But I did some calls with Tim where he just explained to me, like, here's how you can phrase it in a way that he might not be as resistant to this change management. So it's
right. Yeah. So it's just, even if it's progress over perfection, right? Like if we go in there and have this idea in our head, like, no, we're going to do this, we're going to follow it to a T, and we got to do it perfectly, you're going to have problems.
Yeah.
And like, that's why I think, Tim really focuses on just like the customizability, the really being able to fit it to meet your needs, and rather than it being this like strict, rigid, like ideological thing that you have to follow, right? That's like religiously, otherwise it's going to break and you're unworthy. Like, like work with your team, work with what works. And there are ways to solve problems. And sometimes it's out of the box, and that's okay.
Yeah, for sure. And, I found that especially in the early days, when I was doing the course, I was on those calls all the time asking Tim questions, which was super, super helpful for us, because I just kind of felt like our business was a little bit different than, we don't make the same product over and over again. So it's a little bit different. But after a while, I kind of felt like, we were flying on our own. But then, when new stuff comes up. So it's just awesome to be able to have the ability just to go back in there and ask the guy himself, because it's just one other, it's just a business coach that I think would be very expensive to get access to. To get this much access to a business coach of that caliber would be very challenging, but because the way it's structured with having the office hours, it's just a really nice way for us to be able to come back and ask more questions.
Yeah, right on. Slava, this has been awesome. It's been really cool to hear more of your story, I guess. Is there anything else that you feel like has been impactful for you that you want to mention, or is there anything else that you want to share?
No, I mean, I can say that I've recommended this to many, many friends. And I think there's some that are going to be doing the course, and they're very, very excited about it. But I think that I find myself evangelizing it, and my friends ask me, like, are you getting paid to do this? And I say, absolutely not. Like, it's just I so believe in this course and this training because it has such a great impact for me. So I think that I can't imagine anybody taking the course and doing it and not having a huge financial ROI, and then just quality of life ROI as well.
Well, I appreciate it, Slava. And it's, that's Tim and I both, that's our hope, right? Is that it's, when it comes down to it, it's like, yeah, we're business owners. Yes, we want to be successful. And yes, we love building business, but that's just one part of who we are and what we do. And we want to see you be able to flourish over here and build this thing in the way, and reach that potential that you have in business, but also just for yourself personally and with your family, and just to have an equal balance between the few things, or if not equal, just balanced enough to where the fulfillment's spot on, right? Because everybody's a little different. Yes. So I'm just so happy to be able to see that in you, and happy for your wife and your kids. And that was the reason why Tim built this thing, is he's like, all right, well, cool. My kids, are they going to say, yeah, Dad was a successful business owner, and he was never around, or am I going to actually find a way to be present and, to be physically present, but also mentally and emotionally present is such a powerful thing. So I'm just proud of the work that you guys have done. Like seriously, nice work.
That idea of was dad just a successful business owner and never around, that literally brought tears to my eyes, because I can hope that my kids will not say that, and I don't think they will, because I'm around a lot. So yeah, great.
That's what it's all about, man.
Yeah. Well, thank you, Hunter. I appreciate it. I appreciate you bringing me on.
Yeah. It's a pleasure chatting with you. You just take care of yourself. And as always, just reach out for help when you need it.
Thanks, man. Absolute pleasure getting to know you. Thanks, Hunter. Take care.
Yeah, we'll talk to you soon. Take care.
Hey, Tim Uchuk here, and real quick, if you enjoyed this podcast episode, if you could take a couple quick seconds to give it a rating, it would be very much appreciated. And secondly, if you're looking for more tools and strategies on how you can crush it in life and business, just head on over to bookwithtim.com, where I've put together a free case study which shows you how to unlock unprecedented freedom today by using the 2 power levers. Just head on over to bookwithtim.com. Until next time, wishing you success and freedom in your business. Cheers.